Here's an update on the Old Country barbecue pits after a little over a year of use. Very heavy use. First, let's have a look around and see how this thing has held up over a year of heavy use for me. So to start off, I want to tell you about my favorite feature on this entire smoker, hands down, is this lever on the side where you can adjust it and change how the heat deflector operates. I'll talk about this a little bit more once I open up the cook chamber, but I want to give a shout out to Jeffrey Boyd for telling me about this bungee cord and how to keep this lever going. Let's take a look at how the Firebox held up. This was in a lot of stormy weather, crazy weather, you know how it's been recently. The only complaint I have about this is the back where you see that there's a rusty look. The Firebox can hold a lot of fuel. It could burn really low and slow or hot and fast, but I found that I keep having to oil it pretty often, and it does give it a little rusty look after some use. So you definitely got to maintain it. Grapeseed oil will be your friend with this. I love the vents at the back because it allows you to really control the fuel and the air intake from the Firebox. And this is the clean out door. I also use this for air intake as well, just in case it's a little cold outside and it's hard to get everything up to temperature. I have no complaints about the stacks. They work well. They're short, but they bring in a lot of air and they held up really well. How's the front of this thing look? Well, aside from, the tray where you can put your food on, more or less it held up great. These trays usually get abused pretty easily and look a little bit more worn than everything else, but it held up fine. It's functional and I love it. Let's take a look inside. So you can see the space that I have inside this cooker. I have the main grate in there right now to show you how much open space it is. You can put a lot of food on here. I usually just use this main grate most of the time, rotate food out, but if I have a lot going on, I will put the rack in, which I will show you in a second here. And we'll talk about more about the cooking chamber. Now let's show you both the warming rack and the main grate in here. And you can see the clearance that you have at the top. I'm able to put some briskets on here, some ribs, but not anything too tall. So let's start taking this rack off, and I want to show you the heat deflector. But before I do that, look at how far these extend out so you can manage your proteins or whatever you have on the smoker, and you can see the clearance better now that the top rack is pulled out. So you got a good amount of space. As long as your briskets don't sit tall, you'll be fine. And I got a glove on because this thing is really dirty because I just finished using it. So let's take these racks out and let's show you how the inside of this cooking chamber held up. Let's get a little bit closer, shall we? Alright, so you can see all the grease and stuff that's built up at the bottom. I did scrape this out and clean it a little bit before, but I wanted you to see how it naturally wears down. It held up pretty well. I don't keep any pans here. I scrape it out every other cook because it does have a It does really good about trapping the grease, and that hole goes down into that bucket, and it really does flow out fine, so there's nothing that settles in there too bad, and I don't worry about a grease fire. But yeah, that's how it held up pretty well. Let's take a different look at this, and I wanted to give a different angle because I'm talking about the heat deflector. So remember that lever? That lever goes up, and you see that heat deflector go up. I like to keep this bad boy up while I'm cooking, if I can, most of the time, because it gives a different flavor to your meat. You can keep this heat deflector closed all the way, and it'll give you the exact function of an offset. It cooks low and slow, very low and slow. About 225 is where it loves it at. But I like to have a little bit of more direct-ish type heat going into the main cooking chamber. So you definitely use this guy to adjust up and down how that heat deflector goes. And I like to keep it all the way open or all the way closed. But you do have to manage your proteins because the heat does come from the bottom. So when it comes up from the bottom, it goes up in the front and it goes out. So you definitely have to be mindful of when you check your meat so it doesn't burn at the bottom. So it's very important. These old-fashioned wagon wheels are great. They held up fine. They're easy to push through any type of terrain, really. On the other side, there are regular wheels with casters on it. Everything works fine with this. The lower rack I have here, I usually put like wood and stuff on, but I don't often use it. But I do tell you, these wagon wheels are a great addition for moving things around. Makes things very easy. Lastly, let's talk about this Firebox. I've run so many tests on this thing while having it. So many. And I will tell you that I love this Firebox and I somewhat don't like it. But I mostly like it. So it's held up well over time, as I told you before. Let's take a look inside. There is a place where you put all the charcoal. Now, I'll give you a tip. This is held up really well. I oiled it down a little bit, but you want to load your charcoal from left to right, all the way across. How high you build it is all up to you. It depends on your elevation, temperature, and all that. But if you start the fire at one end, usually at the right side, and let it go all the way to the left, you can reload with charcoal and you'll be fine. I've done the wood splits. I've done a whole bunch of different configurations that you've seen online. And I'll tell you, the one that I just mentioned is the best and most efficient. Now, with the air intake, you will have to keep this clean out door open sometimes, depending on your temperature outside, that is, because sometimes it is a little bit hard to keep the temperatures above 225 because I mentioned earlier, this thing loves to stay at 225. But if you keep that heat deflector open, it will help you out. And you see that there's this, the warming rack fits right into the Firebox. Now, the only complaint I have here is if you can see on the right hand side, there is unevenness, but it's not a deal breaker. Functionally, it doesn't do anything, make any difference. The air intake vents work pretty well, especially when you're trying to sear or finish off things back here. It helps you really push out food a lot quicker. So I love this thing. So all in all, I really love this smoker. I have produced a lot of great food on here. I want to thank Old Country Barbecue Pits for sending this out to me. I do recommend you guys give this a look if you are not totally engulfed into the whole offset game. I think this is a happy medium, and this cooker is different, and I like different devices to use that go against the norm. So go in Academy Sports, go to Buc-ee's, hit up Enrique from Old Country Barbecue Pits. He's all over the reviews online, and let him know that you are interested in getting this. And I'm telling you, if you got about $600 to $700 out the door plus shipping, this thing will up your barbecue game. I love it. It works well for my catering company, content creation. This is a beast. Once you learn how to use it, man, it cooks your food very fast and very flavorfully. So, hope to see you in the comments on some future videos. Holla at your boy.